In this video, we're going to give you an overview of how we assess the climate and culture for innovation with an organization.
As you know, organizations worldwide have set innovation as a top strategic priority. You can see this in reports from the Conference Board, from IBM research studies, from Pricewaterhouse. Even KPMG has had reports about the importance of a culture for innovation to really enable innovation across the entire organization.
Innovation is a core competency that is now needed with every person in the organization. Every person has that potential to be innovative. Every person has the potential to think and act innovatively in their everyday work. And when we enable people to do this, then innovations are a natural result. When you provide a supportive climate and culture for innovation, then you can really create an environment of sustainable innovation.
And that innovation then applies across all 5 domains of top line, midline, knowledge, organization, and stakeholder innovations, so that people are proactively setting their sights on where do we need to innovate, where do I need to spend my time and my energy, no matter what my responsibilities are. Now, as we've discussed before, there's a distinction between climate and culture for innovation. To review, climate is the set of values, attitudes, and behaviors that you can find in leaders anywhere in the organization and in their team or group members. This is where we set the overall environment for how we innovate in small groups. And this kind of climate can change just simply with the leadership change. Overall, the individual climates throughout one function or one group or another can be affected by the culture, but they're somewhat independent of the culture as well. Now, the culture is actually the set of norms and values that are embedded in the policies and practices and systems of the organization so that innovation is, in a way, institutionalized. Now, this is something that the senior leadership is primarily responsible for. And responsible for it not only in terms of the policies and practices and systems they put into place, but also by the conversations that they have with the people who report to them that can enable innovation or sometimes can stifle innovation if not done well.
What are some of the basic concepts to keep in mind when you are both assessing a climate and culture for innovation and striving to foster and strengthen that climate and culture? First of all, we consider being innovative as the mindset. Thinking and working innovatively is the process. Innovations are a natural result. So the climate and culture for innovation is essential for enabling people to be innovative, to work innovatively, and to produce innovations.
The innovation process, as we've seen before, has an inhale and an exhale. In the same way, fostering a climate and culture for innovation also has an inhale and an exhale. The inhale is, first of all, asking the right questions of what's going on, and then focusing on noteworthy findings that you can leverage or strengthen as the need requires. The exhale is where you take those findings and actually develop a holistic strategic game plan for the short, medium, and long term. And the purpose for assessing that climate and culture, therefore, is to actually provide the right focus through your questions and findings and stimulate the right conversations for formulating that game plan.
So what are the key measures for the climate and the culture? First of all, for the climate, you want to measure the values, the attitudes, and the behaviors that help people to practice the 8 qualities that support a climate for innovation. The second thing that you want to measure are the conversations between, especially the senior leaders and those that they lead. Are they having the kind of conversations that enable and support people to be innovative, think innovatively, and act innovatively? The third one is assessing the policies, the practices, and the systems of the organization to make sure that they are also enabling people to be innovative in their everyday work.
Now, what's the history behind these kinds of measures? It started with a piece of research I did back at the Stanford Research Institute in the 1980s, where I studied 22 companies that had a history of entrepreneurial acquisitions of small companies that were known for being innovative. And the study was what kept that innovativeness alive or what killed it once the acquisition came into the larger company. And that research revealed 16 distinct factors that were important to pay attention to keep those cultures of innovation alive. Now, over time, the 16 factors in this model has evolved and been innovative to not only address acquisitions, but to address any particular culture or innovation that any organization might have in its own practice.
So what are the components of the innovation culture profile assessment itself? There's two major sections. The first one has 3 parts. The first part has 48 items that assesses the 8 climate qualities, the values, the attitudes, and the behaviors for the climate qualities. It also asks people how they feel the mission, vision, and values of the organization are actually being practiced and lived out by people in the organization. It looks at also how people feel, how innovative the people feel the organization is compared to others in their industry. And they also look at what people feel are the priorities that the organizational leaders are giving for where innovations should occur in the organization.
The answers to those are actually quite revealing to really find how people see the priorities, how they see the innovativeness of their organization compared to others in the industry, and to see how well they feel people are actually living the mission and vision.
The third part of this first section has open text questions, and this is where we work together with the leaders who are sponsoring this culture assessment and to find out what would be important questions they would want to get answers to. So these are open text questions that are customized to the organization itself. The second part of the assessment has 2 parts. The first part has 48 items that assess the quality of conversations that the leaders are having with those that they lead. And the second part has another 48 items that assess the policies, practices, and systems in the organization that support a culture for innovation.
Now, what do the results actually reveal from an innovation culture profile? First of all, you begin to see the large data, if you will, the macro data for the climate, the culture conversations, the cultural practices, and a composite score of all 3 of those. Now, with those macro scores, you can begin to break it down according to level, such as individual contributors versus senior executives or project managers in between. You can also break it down by organizational units to see how one particular function or business unit has a culture and climate compared to another. Any number of ways, depending on the demographics that you would specify with the sponsors of this kind of assessment. The next level of understanding the results from the innovation culture profile is to first examine the actual work being done and what that process is, so that we can relate the climate and culture factors to that work and make the assessment more practical and more revealing in terms of what it's actually telling us. So we've seen that the innovation process goes through 4 stages. You stretch, collaborate, co-create, and actualize. And the 8 qualities of the climate for innovation have a direct relationship in supporting those 4 stages being done well. And even furthermore, the 16 factors of the culture have a direct relationship in supporting those stages and therefore actually supporting the people in the organization who are doing the innovative work on a stage-by-stage basis.
While this can seem like a lot of details when you first look at it, it actually makes sense once you start to see the next set of graphs. The next set of graphs shows specifically which qualities go with which of the tasks and stages of the process, as well as which factors affect which task and which stages. As you begin to review these kinds of graphs, then you can begin to see how is the climate and culture really supporting every aspect of the innovation process. Some organizations discover that they're very good in the early stages and tasks of the process, but they're not so good in the later ones. And it makes sense to the leaders because they say, well, wow, we get started with a bang, but yet we kind of lose our energy. And this particular assessment will show them exactly why they're losing their energy.
You'll also be able to see from these graphs how different levels might have a different perception of the same culture. Mm-hmm. Where is it supportive? Where is it not supportive? Mm-hmm. Or in different business units, where are the culture or climate more effective and less effective in supporting people in that day-to-day following of the innovation process, being innovative in their day-to-day work?
We've had situations where senior leaders as well as entry-level people had a very positive feeling about different areas of the culture, whereas the project managers and the project leaders didn't have such a strong feeling about it or didn't give such a strong rating. And when we further inquired and asked and did our research, we found out that the project leaders and the project managers, they're the ones on the front line, responsible for the innovations directly to the client, and they didn't feel they were getting the support that they needed, whereas the senior leaders and the entry-level people felt that everything was okay. So it really explained the disconnect that was going on in the organization that really needed to be attended to.
We've also seen just the opposite. We've seen places where project leaders felt, gee, the culture is really good, let's just say in terms of managing risk. And the senior leader says, no, the culture's not good at managing risk because we're not taking the level of risk that we really need to take. So it again reveals these different perceptions that become part of the conversation of what it is that we need to strengthen, where do we need to improve.
Another important item that is received out of this assessment is a booklet, a profile booklet. This is where you get all of the details of the results of the culture assessment itself. It shows every item and what the assessment was. It shows which items have strengths that you could build on, and it shows which items you want to seriously consider to enhance and improve in your strategic planning.
And these items are organized according to which specific task those items most relate to. So again, you have that clear way of analyzing what are the leverage points if we need to improve this portion of how people get the innovative work done.
So, how do people get started with a culture assessment? Any kind of culture change, of course, requires the senior leaders, a strong commitment of the senior leaders. So how is the best way to get started, would you say?
You know, sometimes the best way to get started is very small and very slow, because senior leaders may need the time to get to know this type of assessment, take it just themselves, maybe a group of 15 or 20 or 30 people, see what kind of results come up, see what their own reflections of their own experience of the culture look like, see the value of the report, and learn to trust the process, that it actually has some value to deliver before they want to start engaging a wider group of employees to take the time to actually fill out the questionnaires, give their results. And you know, anytime you do a culture assessment or any kind of assessment like this, you are creating a commitment with the people who take it, that you're going to do something, that you're going to honor the value of their time, you're going to get back. And senior leaders need to make sure that they can make that commitment. So sometimes we start small. At other times, some leaders say, no, we know we're ready for this. We really want to jump right in and get a large group of people involved to do an assessment. We see what the value is. We see what we want to learn. So let's go do it. And therefore, we jump right into doing a larger scale intervention and making sure, again, that we're honoring the time of the people, honoring the investment of the organization, and making sure that what they're doing is really going to give them some value back.
We always recommend in this case where they want to go more large scale that they start by setting up a guided coalition, a group of people who are really committed to this climate and culture change and will see it through.
And then after having that guiding coalition, to be able to take the results of this kind of assessment report and work the climate and culture factors and develop a game plan for what they can do in the short, medium, and long term, and to leverage really their effort across the different dimensions of the organization, across the different functions, to make sure that the culture is being strengthened step by step. Because to actually change a culture, it takes a good while. And you need to have the discipline as well as the art to do this kind of change process and keep reinforcing it step by step. So it's not seen as just the idea du jour, the idea of the day, but it's actually a strong commitment for the future of the organization.
What is the role of the innovation culture profile consultant? That's a mouthful. What is the role? So we've talked about how the climate and culture needs a good inhale and a good exhale. The inhale is where you want to ask the right questions. You want to discover where your leverage points are, where your strengths are. The exhale is where you actually want to create that strategic plan with short-term, medium, and long-term milestones for strengthening that culture for innovation. So the consultant is there to make sure that you have a good and healthy breathing rhythm of inhale and exhale, as well as providing guidance and wisdom from their experience of helping organizations strengthen and build their climate and culture for innovation.